But the point here is that just a week ago, he knew exactly what was in that list. I don't know why he's hiding it. I think every Canadian looks at this guy and knows that he's got a few dollars in his pocket. But I think what it does do is it raises questions. And the fact that he's so snarky with his responses, I think it's going to start turning off the kind of people that he's trying to attract. I think one of the things about him going to Europe, I think the idea of Mark Carney, I think, is probably better than the actual Mark Carney.
Folks, I don't think Mark Carney understands what he's got himself into, because he continues to crack over and over again from very simple questions that the media are posing to him. And we saw that displayed today when he was in the UK. And it all ties back to the video I did yesterday where I played this clip from Global News.
Got some smart people advising him. Surely you know that on a campaign, you're going to get asked about this probably every day. You want to make it go away. Now, does he want to do that? No, he doesn't want to talk.
We've seen this constantly with him, is that he's not used to being asked tough questions because he's been a central banker and everybody looks up to it. Well, now you're in the political trenches. I mean, Mr. Poilievre gets tough questions too, and he will fight back at journalists, and he has. But, you know, that's the nature of the game.
And I come back to those tough questions that Carney is getting. They're completely predictable. Any, half-decent communications advisor will say, well, Mr. Carney, here's what, let me look at the front pages of the Globe and Mail and what was on Global News last night, and you're going to get asked about this, and he has no answer. He has no good answer other than to be chippy about it.
Now, a lot of these statements are based off of the actions that he displayed on Friday with these two particular questions.
And when you're in Europe, are you going to be seeking assurances from Canada's allies that this country will never become America's 51st state? And when would it be an appropriate time for you to take that message to the U.S. president? Our allies, sir, do you want to?
I don't think we need. I don't think we need to hear it from. Nous sommes maîtres. We're masters in our home. We're in charge.
Next one. Hi, Prime Minister Carney. I'm Jillian Piper with Global News. I understand that your assets have been put into a blind trust. I wanted to ask you, what is the value of the assets and where did they come from? How can Canadians know that there's no conflict of interest if they don't know where the assets come from?
That's an odd question.
So he had quite the reaction there, was quite defensive. And to David Aiken's point, if he had a good communications team on his side, they would let him know that these are the questions that are going to be coming towards you. They saw the reaction. You never really answered the question. Be prepared. You're going to get asked that again. But he thinks he's Mr. Big Shot, and this is what happened when he was in the UK.
Prime Minister Michael Couture with CTV News. I take your point earlier on a number of our allies talking about our sovereignty today. But nobody's come out forcefully and said those comments about the 51st state are just not on. Do you think that our traditional allies are not sticking their necks out because they're concerned that if they say something that'll anger President Trump, that they'll be next?
I think I would take seriously what the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom said today. I don't think one needs to respond to every comment about another country. Look, we can stand up for ourselves. It's Canada strong. We can stand up for ourselves. We've called out those comments. They're disrespectful. They're not helpful, and they need to stop before. And conversation about our broader partnership with the United States. But we're Canada. We don't need other people to come to our aid. Come on. C'est pas nécessaire d'avoir d'autres pays nous aident. Nous sommes Canada, Canada fort. Okay.
You don't think it'd be helpful that they come out and say something?
We have other things. Look, when the Prime Minister of Canada sits down with the President of France or the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, we talk about our relationships and where we have responsibilities, not what others are doing.
So now he's interrupting mid-follow-up question, but not only that, he's also talking over the reporter because he's done with this question. He doesn't want to answer it anymore. He wants to move on. But unfortunately for him, this is the clip that's now going viral, which was the next question with the Globe and Mail reporter, because she asks him about his assets, and he doesn't like that.
Madame.
Mr. Carney, Stephanie Levitz with Globe and Mail. We understand that you have now placed your assets in a blind trust, so you don't know what's happening to them going forward, but you knew what they were going into that blind trust. So what are they?
Look, Stephanie, I follow the rules of the Ethics Commissioner. I'm following them well in advance of any of the requirements, as you know, because I know you know this. You know that these requirements come into effect in months. We're talking days after I became Prime Minister. So I'm complying with the rules of the Ethics Commissioner, going through the processes and all these things that are necessary. And I will remind you, and I'll remind Canadians again, that the Leader of the Opposition cannot find it. And look, you look at the questions this evening, you look at the nature of the discussions, look at the nature of discussions I had with the President of France, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The Leader of the Opposition would not be capable of having those discussions because the Leader of Opposition refuses to get his security clearance.
No, it's because of what you just laid out. He's the Leader of the Opposition. He's not the Prime Minister. If he was the Prime Minister, then he could be having these meetings with the leaders like Macron or Starmer and having these conversations. And when he becomes a Prime Minister, then he has to have his security clearance. He already gets it. So this is all a distraction that Carney is trying to do here. But let's continue.
Something that it took me a few weeks to get. And he has been the Leader of the Opposition for 3 years. So I comply with my responsibilities. I comply with the rules well in advance. And the Leader of the Opposition doesn't take his responsibilities at a time of, well, you should take these responsibilities at any time. But it's particularly remarkable given the stakes in global geopolitics at the moment.
The rules say that those assets should be publicly disclosed within 120 days, which means you'll campaign in a coming federal election, most likely within the next 120 days, and are serving as Prime Minister now, with Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought to avoid.
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Point final.
Now, in some of the earlier clips, they described Carney as being snarky and chippy, but I would add condescending because this guy ended off by saying, point final, like end of story, we're done talking, move on, as if he's talking to a child. And he displays this kind of disrespect, especially to the female reporters, over and over again. And you're going to see it now when Rosemary Barton from the CBC chimes in to question him on this. And listen to what he says to her.
So you say you are not open to any conflict of interest?
Yes.
Spend most of your life in the private sector. There's no possible conflict of interest in your assets. It's very difficult to believe.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary. I mean, you start from a prior of conflict and ill will. I have served in the private sector. I have stood up for Canada. I have left my roles in the private sector at a time of crisis for our country. I'm complying with all the rules. Your line of questioning is trying to invent new rules. I'm complying with the rules that Parliament has laid out and the responsibilities of the Ethics Commissioner. And I will continue to comply with those rules.
And just like that, he continues to be condescending by addressing these women by their first name in the way that he's doing it, by saying, now Stephanie, or Rosemary, look inside of yourself, as if he's correcting them for misspeaking or speaking out of turn. And then he's gaslighting them by saying, well, I'm following the rules and you guys are just creating new rules. No, the fact of the matter is, by you doing it the time that you're doing it and an election being so close, say you lose the election, none of that information that you submitted ever comes out. So we don't know what your assets are, how much you're worth, where you've got your money or where your money came from. And that's what they're trying to point out. Now, if you become the Prime Minister, it's still an issue because those things should have stopped you from becoming the Prime Minister. You should have got rid of all of those conflict of interests beforehand. You just stepping down from all those positions is not enough. The Ethics Commissioner needs to do an investigation. And that's why we just want you to be upfront and honest. You know what assets were put in the blind trust. We're not saying you know what's going on with the blind trust, but you obviously know what's in it, like what your assets were beforehand. So just disclose that. But he's being so secretive, so sneaky, be like, well, I've done everything that I need to do, and you guys now just have to wait. But that is the problem at hand. And this is exactly what Laura Stone brings up, who works for the Globe and Mail, when she was on Vashi's panel.
Look, I think the tone absolutely matters in how you deal with the media and how you deal with questions you don't necessarily like, you don't want to answer. This is what an election campaign is about. And you can't continually turn around and attack the people who are asking questions in the public interest. And I think what Mr. Carney has to understand here is this isn't personal. And maybe the fact that it's about his assets, it's about a blind trust, makes him feel like it's a personal attack. But this is actually about what's in the public interest. And it's about a public office holder answering these very basic questions. And so I think, it's not like members of the public are sitting around watching every press conference that Mr. Carney is going to give, but they will, one can only hope, but it's going to build, right? This is going to go viral. It's going to be played on TV, on radio. People are going to hear about it. And the next time that he gives a press conference, and if he has a similar kind of tone and attitude towards very legitimate questions, I think it will hurt him in a campaign. And so I think, he has to find the balance between answering a question that he does not like or care for or want to give, too much personal information about, and recognizing that it's a legitimate question and giving the public the satisfaction of him kind of recognizing why this is important.
Now, at this point, I really don't think the Conservatives need to start doing too much to tarnish his image, because as Laura points out, this is going to get blasted everywhere, on the radio, on media, social media, and people are going to see how Carney reacts to certain questions, how he interacts with reporters, how defensive he gets. And as the first clip of the video with that panelist says, the idea of Mark Carney is a lot better than Mark Carney himself. And I think people are going to start seeing that this guy's probably not cut out for the job. They just like the idea of this fancy banker or this governor of the Bank of Canada coming in to help us. But then they're going to start to realize this guy is not really up to snuff in a sense. But with that being said, what do you guys think about all this? Leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.